School is back in session.
Yeah, finally.
Everybody is hitting it hard. Students, teachers, admin, principals. And we are here today to talk to a really incredible principal at Bullard High. And go Knights.
Local kid, local
Knights.
Armen, Torigian, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
It's real great to get a chance to have you here and share a little your story and a little bit about what we're trying to share with our followers and how that looks for people to see what the real people, the hustle of what you got to get there.
Yeah.
You know, like we've been talking about.
And I mean, here we were right before we jumped live on here and talking about the hard work it took for you to get here. So we're going to get to that too, about from the very beginning. So I want to start with a little fun game.
Sure.
Okay. Are you in?
Yeah.
All right.
Man.
Word
I think I have a choice,
association.
but yeah, I'm in.
I know.
I'm in right now.
Hey. So I'm going to say a word, and you're going to say the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Okay? Vibrant.
You know, I'm like trying to think like in what way vibrant. I would say attitudes of kids.
Okay? Champion.
Mindset.
Grit.
Like hard work and mindset.
Greatness.
Hard work and mindset. It's all about a mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Mentor.
I have a lot of them.
Courage.
How can I say? For courage, it's, I think that was something that, well, like hard work was kind of instilled by my parents, like not being afraid.
So you think of them. I love that. Perseverance.
Being Armenian.
Okay. Integrity.
I would have to say, again, like probably it's just kind of like the upbringing, like being Armenian, my parents, my family, something to be said, but I can explain that later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And the last one is attitude.
Attitude, like the first thing that comes to my mind is it's your choice.
Choice. Yeah. Good one.
So I don't know if any of these words ring a bell to you. Do you know where I got these words?
Out of probably something that I've written.
Your principal
My
message.
principal message.
Principal
Yep.
message. Yep.
And all these words were really intriguing to me because I feel like they actually are big. Like they say
Examples.
something. They're
Yeah.
examples of things that are incredible. So I read your principal's message and I was in.
I'm all getting teary-eyed right now because it was, you know what, that's really heartfelt and when I did that because, you know, I don't know. I don't know what it is that brought me back to, well, I could tell you what it is that brought me back to teaching, but like we said earlier, right? If you would have told me when I graduated high school and college, I'd come back and be a teacher, maybe be a principal. I'm like, heck no. Like, I remember walking out of college when I was done with football. I was done with, like, I'm never coming back to school. I'm never doing this. And then I quickly realized as I got older, don't ever use the word never.
Never use never.
Right? Because that's gonna, it's like a sucker punch, right? Punches you in the gut and you're gonna be right back. Like I said, I'm never gonna go in, like I'm done with education. I'm never going back to school.
Right.
Like, what do I do? Right?
End up being a mentor to that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when I was taking my first accounting class, I hated accounting. Mm-hmm. I'm like, why do I even learn this? I'll hire an accountant, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
The first class I taught, accounting.
Counting.
Oh my goodness.
What did I do when I went over to Paramount Pictures and finance? Accounting. Right. So then I said, I'm never moving back to Fresno when I moved down south. I'm back. Right. And so I always tell kids, even when I was teaching, I'm like, don't ever use the word never. I go, you're going to sucker yourself and you're going to put yourself in a hole.
Yeah.
I go, don't go down that rabbit. Don't say, I won't ever.
Ever.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you can never say never because it's not, it gets you. Right.
Right.
So
But you also, I mean, not to interrupt you, but I'll tell you that you look at your brief stories in terms of what I've learned and you've catapulted through your role in through the district and what you've accomplished. Obviously, you're a shining star inside of that. I think you're never really was powerful to fight against.
I find, first of all, I'm like very fortunate and blessed and thankful for like my parents, instilling a lot of these, like the words that you were just using, like grit and perseverance. And, I mean, I can go into the whole Armenian genocide thing, but I see a lot of Armenians and they persevered through the genocide. They've persevered having to leave their country and trying to come back and resettle somewhere else. I come from parents who were both immigrants. They met here, and got married in Fresno. And then 5 years after they were married, they had their first headache, me, right? And then the second headache came 6 years later. That was my brother, although I think he was a bigger headache. But we always kid, right? And very fortunate, right? They worked really hard.
Yeah.
My dad was a tailor by trade. My mom became a nurse. And they worked, wee hours of the night and everything they could just to give us the tools that we needed to be successful and very unselfish. I mean, until this day, they've still never been to Hawaii, right? And because, everybody was taking all these trips, they never did. And it's like, you need a computer, we get you a computer, You're going to go to college. Yep, you're going to college. We don't know how you're going to afford it, but you're going to go to college.
We're going to get you there.
And so that's the sacrifices they made, but they persevered, like with their families and coming to a different country. Having that integrity and the grit and courage, like I would have to say, I'll attribute a lot of the courage to my wife. I taught for so many years. I taught for 10 years and I'd gotten my admin degree. And she's like, if you ever want to be a principal, this dream of you being a principal, you can't. How are you going to do this if you got to go be a VP first? I'm like, man, I don't want to be a VP. All they deal is with the discipline.
Right.
And she's like, well, at one point you're going to have to do that to get there.
Right.
And she goes, you got this and you can do this. And, she kind of like, just take the leap of faith and let's see what happens. Like, what's the worst that'll happen? You'll go back and be a teacher. It's not being a failure. Right. And
No.
So I'll attribute to a lot of that courage to her, giving me that little push or that little nudge. And I mean, I'll tell you, there were a lot of nights and I left Fresno Unified to do my first VP gig at Central Unified. And then I came back a year after that. So, which Central was great, but Bullard's home.
And what grades did you teach?
So I actually was very fortunate. I literally taught all grades. For some reason, I would never get the sophomores. I shouldn't say for some reason. I knew what the reason was, is because sophomore schedules are so impacted. So that I would teach freshmen and then sophomore year, they're still having to take PE. They got to take a foreign language. So their schedule was so impacted, I never got to see them in the electives there. But then I taught the juniors and seniors, and I taught classes from business law, small business management, marketing and entrepreneurship. I taught civil law, computer skills. So it was a lot of the kids. It was a lot of fun, and kids wanted to be in there. And we started a student store and made all this money, and it was great.
So business has been a focal point of yours. Have you ever owned your own business?
No, I'm too scared. I'm too scared. Like it's easier to hide.
I'll tell you,
it's easier to hide behind the educational walls. No, you know what? You can say we started a business and it was our school student store. I'd asked our principal at the time, Brian Beck. I'm like, man, look, when I first got to Bullard, nobody, like, you couldn't buy like Bullard high school gear. You had to go to CVS or Walgreens or Long's Drugs back in the day, right? You had to go to those stores to find like Bullard gear.
Right.
And so I found some magazine that was sent and it said like buy shirts, like 100 shirts for $2.99 a pop. And I called the place up. I'm like, look, I'm gonna take a chance. Here's my credit card. Put it on there. I like literally took a chance.
Wow.
And so the guy's like, look, I'll give you net 30. And I was like a business guy. I knew what net 30 meant, right?
Right.
And he goes, and hopefully you can sell. I'm like, all right. So I did it. And we sold out in the shirts. Like literally, it was like the first day of freshman orientation. I sold out of 100 shirts.
How great's that?
And then so I had to reorder.
Yeah.
And I sold the shirts for $8. They cost me like, I think it was $4 by the time it's tax and shipping.
Right.
And so I ordered more, and obviously they weren't going to come in time for day 2.
Right.
But literally had those for a week, gone. And so I just started,
Find a need.
and just trying to find that need. And all of a sudden, I was ordering from other places in town, and they're giving me net 30, net 60, and starting to turn them around. I literally had boxes from the ground.
So you did own a business.
That's a business.
Yeah, I guess, right? But
that's all it is.
Boxes from the ground up, and we would like literally schlep boxes to the quad on a table, and like, okay, let's pick that box. What's in it? Okay, sweatshirts. We're selling sweatshirts today. And we would just sell out. And I told the principal, I'm like, look, we can make some money. I just need a physical space. I can get orders a POS system, set it all up, do this. And he's like, all right. So he cleared out some place. And it was where our walk-in refrigerators were, and they moved that. And because here you go. And I'm like, oh, dude, this place is like a mess.
That's all I got.
But we went around to the community, and I think we got donations and $3,000, and we fixed the place up and built this student store called Blue Nation. And literally within the first 3 months that we were open, from December to March, and mind you, December is like half a month.
Right.
January is half a month, right? Because we've got the break going in.
Yeah.
From December, it was December 10th when we opened, in December 10th in 2010 to March 2011, we grossed over $20,000.
That's great.
And with a 30% profit margin. Right. So we made $6,000.
Right.
And so that just started turning over, and
Love it.
And then my small business management classes, and it came down to the point where it was like, I almost felt like I was cheating the system. Like, it was a well-oiled machine. My kids would set up, who was working, just like a store.
Right.
And so, I guess you could say we started a business.
Yeah.
But
it's really all that is. Business is finding a need and serving it.
Yeah. It's a safer way of doing it because it's not my money. One. Two, it shuts down in the summer. It shuts down during breaks and stuff like that. So it's easier. But the kids got a real live look of what it's like to work in a store. And a lot of my students would get hired at Tilly's at River Park.
Yep.
And they would skip having to work,
because they'd go
straight into sales because they knew how to work the POS system. And it was the same one that they were using.
Oh, that's great.
And so it was awesome. So it was awesome to see that.
So before we started, we were actually talking about kind of how we all started.
Sorry, yep.
No, I love it.
That's what we do.
And I'm sitting here listening to you, and you're giving me so much hope because I have a senior in high school. And sometimes I think, oh my goodness, are these kids of this generation gonna come out and
find those steps
and do something? And I think honestly, a lot of it is just high school. You learn so much, but then the next step, you learn so much. But we all talked about our first jobs and how you said what you did. I worked up at a camp at 14 and cleaned toilets and cabins, and that's what we did. I've always worked since 14. So how do you feel like the kids of this generation are getting the experience besides your awesome Blue store? What was it called?
Blue Nation.
Blue Nation store. That's so cool.
Is it still around?
It is. So when that was before we had that store, and then when they did the remodel and built the new buildings, they tore that piece down. And then they gave us another store, which wasn't big enough, which wasn't as big. And it was weird. If you've been on our campus, none of our buildings have any 90-degree angles, right? Everything's 2 degrees different.
Right.
But it's gorgeous, but it's just, when you get inside, it becomes difficult, right? Mm-hmm. And so at that point, we were just kind of like, all right, well, we'll make do. But then that's when I left and went to Central as a VP, and I left the store. And I did a lot of things on campus. I loved it. Honestly, when I left Paramount Pictures and finance, literally prayed, I'm like, God, just let me love whatever. If I'm going to do this, just let me love it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want it to seem like work. And I swear he answered all my prayers because I would get to school at 7:30 in the morning and I would be there till 8:30 or 9 o'clock. Mind you, and I was single at the time. I didn't have kids. I didn't have anything.
You could invest any money.
I could invest any, I'll stay, I'll do it. I did everything from running Link Crew to teaching my 5 classes, running the student store, assistant athletic director, assistant activities director, cheer director, football coach. You say it, I've done it.
You name it, I've done it.
But I knew, and my goal was at that point, I'm learning the process.
You're immersed, yeah.
Right? I'm learning the process. I knew the end result. I wanted to be a principal, but I told myself that when I get to that seat, I want to be able to look across the table and the people that I'm working with and say, I've done those jobs.
Been there.
Right.
And I know, right? And I'm lucky. I have a great team that supports everything that I do. But you're right. I will tell you one thing that I'm really proud of with what we have at Bullard. We have a huge CTE program. That allows a lot of on-hands training, right? We have a biomed pathway. We also just started our new sports medicine our new sports medicine class. My dream with that is to build, a sports medicine pathway to where our students can be recruited by Fresno State and move straight into their their sports medicine programs over there, long-term vision, right? But our biomed pathway is amazing. Our law pathway, amazing. We have a new an internship that we're placing students, like we have students that work with ESPN radio. We have students that are working throughout our community. And the first 5 to 6 weeks of school, they spend 2 periods. That's either first and second period or fifth and sixth period. We're teaching them kind of like how you're conducting yourself while you're in a workplace. And then the internships will pick them up and they'll go work at the internship and they get credit for that. So there is a lot of hands-on stuff going on and real world stuff.
Schools are evolving, it sounds like, to a hybrid trade school concept.
And I think that's important. Like, look, I'm all about kids going to a 4-year college or, a secondary, post high school, all about it. But we also have to realize that not all kids are going to go to college. And I will be honest, so I'm a stepdad of 2. When I married my wife, she already had 2 kids, and I've known them since they were 5 and 7, and I couldn't be more proud to be their stepdad. And I get all choked up when I talk about it because I've known, and now they're 8. One's about to be 19. Our daughter's about to be 19, and our son's going to be 21 in January. And a lot of credit to their dad, who's awesome, and we all get along, and we've done a lot of co-parenting, which has been awesome. And that's all because of courage, stuff that my wife had done to make sure, and I'd have to my hat goes off to her ex-husband because he's allowed me to be part of their lives. Right. Nice. And these kids, they have done so much. My son went to Fresno State for a year and he's been a smart kid. I remember him being 10 years old and we're sitting there pulling weeds in the yard, and he's asked me, "Hey, have you ever thought of a 2-headed paramecium?" I'm looking at him what are you talking about? I don't what? I mean, he was so smart, but I think that, and he did fine in high school. Yeah. He left North and came to Bullard his last senior year and loved it. But, he went to Fresno State for a year and he goes, I don't like this. I'm bored.
Right.
I need to be outside. I need to do something with my hands. And he went to lineman school. And he's paying off his debt. He went for lineman school last year from August to November. He got a job with PG&E in May.
Great.
And he's working. I mean, he's making more money than we are.
Yeah.
But the thing is how's work? And you'll look at him and you could tell he's tired. But when he talks about work, the passion's there.
There's a spark.
That's great.
Right. And so that's done a lot for him. So we have to realize that not all kids are going to go that way. We still need those tradespeople.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's sad that,
more than ever.
We took away, the auto shop class. We took away wood shop and metal shop. I mean, some of our neediest kids, or most at-risk kids, would thrive in those programs.
Right.
Well, in our store, exactly that. I mean, our technicians, both 2 of the 4 guys, are out of a high school that had ag welding, and that's as close as they could get to something hands-on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're blossomed because they do have that spirit that's in there and loving what they do. Mm-hmm. And so, we got to offer that up.
For a while, it was, you have to go to college.
Yeah.
You have to go to college.
Yeah.
You're not going to make anything of yourself. But we had this conversation with my son too. He is just wrapping up a trade school in Arizona, and he's moving to LA for an internship. And he kind of floundered. He graduated from Bullard in 21, and just junior college wasn't for him. He wasn't making headway. And so we've talked about this a lot. Every person is so different.
Yeah.
And, it's good to have the basic foundation of hard work pays off.
Right.
And it doesn't matter whether it's going to be in this or in that or in something else, right?
And these are examples of what we've been preaching on this podcast is learn to find those ways. Yeah. Listen to the people that get in front of us. And we find that there is a constant of success that actually is more about the people that are doers or willing to take the leap. And if you find yourself in that moment to take the leap, you might be surprised yourself. Mm-hmm. And it's really, really great.
It is. And the best thing, one thing that I love about education, right, is when you see that light bulb click.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Or you see that smile on their face. Mm-hmm. No amount of money can take that. That's just priceless. Right. And then I ran into a couple of kids and I was telling my staff this when we were coming back into school. I ran into a former student of mine who's working at Walmart and is the assistant manager. And the fact that I'm like, oh my God, I go, Richard, what are you doing here? And he goes, I work here. He goes, he was going to be the manager, and he realized I don't want to be the manager. He goes, I realized I don't want to be that leader because he's just a nice guy. People love him, and there's just something about him that people love, right?
Sure.
And he's got this aura about him. He's just, I don't know, he's just happy-go-lucky guy. He's got a kind soul. And he goes, Torigian, he goes, if it wasn't me being in your business management class, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And that like, I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, trust me. I go, you have good parents who supported you. And he goes, yeah, but he goes, you really helped me find the way. But then I've had students that told me after taking my marketing entrepreneurship class or my small business management class, they're like, so here's one thing I've learned. I'm like, what's that? I don't want to own my own business. And I said, but that's okay too, because you're figuring that out at 17 or 18.
Yeah. Right.
That's hard. No, but you never know. And I try to tell teachers this all the time too. You look at your freshmen and you say, okay, these are who these kids are today. It doesn't mean that's who they're going to be later.
100%.
True.
Right.
100%.
And so that's been the crazy, and that's hard because like, oh my God, this kid is like driving me nuts. Right. But then like, okay, hold on. We were that age once.
Sure.
And so there's just a lot. There's a lot that goes into it. And it's hard. Like high school is hard because not only for the kids, but for adults, because you're navigating them in a time where they're just all over the place. They're just trying to figure out who they are, and life is so much more complicated.
Interesting.
So much more complicated.
Yeah.
Yes.
With social media, the phones, and the technology.
Yep.
Like technology was made to make things easier for us, but I think it's made it more difficult.
Right.
For sure.
And so, but honestly, like, love what I do. It is very challenging. And there's days I'm like, I don't get paid enough for this. But then you think about like, then there's days are like, I can't believe I get paid to do this.
That's the rewards. Yeah.
And those are the things that keep me coming back every single day. And like I said, I work with a great staff. I got a great admin team. I got a bunch of great teachers, and I've got great kids.
One thing, we use that word team in our store, and it's
do.
a heavy part of what we do. And I played sports as an athlete, didn't make it in much beyond high school, but you obviously played through Fresno State and were an accomplished player in that role. But how do you feel that's affected you in the big picture, being a sport, or not necessarily sports, but an athlete as a whole?
It was funny because I was talking to our football team today, and a lot of players, like you've been in my office before, and you come and sit at my desk, and you'll see my helmet up there and my jerseys, and that's not the reason I've done that. Isn't to show off, I could but it's been when the kids find out that I went to Bullard. I'm like, I'm one of you.
Right.
And if I could get there, why can't you?
Right.
Right. And so, what I told them today though was, had I not gone through playing football at Fresno State, I mean, Coach Sweeney was one of my coaches. It was my coach. His last year was my senior year. And I can tell you, when people would say, man, that guy, he's crazy. He's crazy. And he is. But there is a truth to be told about that man, is that people would always say, you walk into his program a boy and you walk out a man. And he just had a way of building people.
Maturing you.
Right.
And I did. I walked in as a young boy, and I walked out a man, and I didn't even know it at that time yet, right? There's one thing that I want to say that had instilled, what that instilled in that part of my life instilled in me, was what we call mental toughness.
Yeah.
And I was telling our football players that today, mental toughness. I'm like, and it's not just, it's playing the game of football. You've got to be physical. It takes a lot of physical toughness, but mental toughness, and not just in being able to handle, the pressures that are put on you, but to be able to have that mental capacity to get beaten up and then come back the next day just to do it all over again.
Right.
And have a bad game or have a bad moment in your play.
You up.
It does. And it teaches you about pressure and how to deal with pressure. Like, I was a kicker, right? So, like, I'm sitting here watching the Rams and the Niners game, and it's like, at the end, I'm a big Rams fan. I was like, it's not over till it's over.
Right.
And then here you go. You got Cardi at the last second, to win the game. And my wife's like, I don't know how you did this. Like, how? Because she wasn't around when I played college football.
Right.
And
Kicker has a lot of pressure. Holy cow.
I thrived on it, though. That was the thing. I didn't realize until I got in there. I'm like, dude, come on, let's go. I want to do this, right? People are like, how do you? And it was weird because right when that moment would be coming out, I could remember my legs always kind of being like rubbery.
Right.
But when coach said, all right, let's go, field goal. And I'd gone through a lot of sports psychology stuff and the visualization techniques and going through all that, I was able to visualize, okay, I can see the ball going through the uprights. I can see myself watching me kick the ball. And that right there, right? It was like, I loved that pressure. People like, oh, you're going to miss. I'm like, come on, man. And I'm telling you, that is something that I live by. When people tell me there's no way you can get that done. Yeah. I'm like, you're just motivating. I'm like, you're just adding more fuel.
Just hit the switch. Keep going.
Just hit the switch.
Thank you. Tell me again.
And that's kind of how I've operated. And honestly, like, I don't know where it came from. I really don't. Like,
Your parents, you bragged on your parents and their fervor in life.
Persevering. I mean, them persevering and doing all that and not ever giving up and knowing. Yeah, but I mean, like, my mom hated sports. My dad loved sports. My dad played professional, kind of like semi-professional soccer in Syria growing up. And when I got cut from the freshman soccer team at Bullard, and I went home and I was like, man, my dad's like, what's wrong? I go, I got cut from the soccer team. And he's like, you did? And I'm like, yeah. And I go, that coach, and he goes, stop. He goes, don't say that your coach doesn't know anything. That coach knows everything. My dad's like, look, you're not good. He said, you're overweight, you're slow. He goes, you've got a great leg and that's about it. Right? But you're not, he goes, you're really not good. And I was like, man, like my own dad, just like I was like, right? I was like, wow,
that was harder than not making the team. Yeah.
And then my buddy Reggie Williams, you know, like I attribute a lot to him because he's like, you're done playing that communist sport. He called it a communist sport.
Oh boy.
You know, he goes, you're done playing that sport. You're going to go play an American sport. And I went out to be the second string quarterback my sophomore year in high school. And then one day, Mr. Ainley, who is still teaching math at Bullard.
Oh my gosh.
Right? I love that guy. And I told our staff this, I owe that man my life, man. Like, he brought out a guy who he played football with at McLean, who was a kicker. His name was Eric Youngman. And that guy, like, he lined everybody up in one big line on the team and said, kick the football. And I kicked it. I was the fifth guy. He goes, you're the kicker.
You're it.
I'm like, no, man, I'm the second string quarterback. He goes, no, you're the kicker. And I went home. My dad's like, how's practice? I go, I'm the kicker. He goes, no, you're the second string quarterback. I go, no, coach said I'm the kicker. So then this guy took me into a portable batting cage and taught me how to kick a football.
How cool is that?
And I already had that strong leg right from soccer.
Yeah.
So that man was a volunteer coach. And I owe it to him and Coach Ainley for you know, building that door. I broke the freaking state record my junior year. And I'm getting like college scholarships are being offered. I mean, I had Cal, Stanford, and UCLA, and I turned them all down and walked on at Fresno State and got my scholarship there. And people were like, are you out of your mind? I'm like, let's not talk about that. I was a stupid kid, but I would never.
But it worked out.
Yeah, and I would never change anything because I learned how to deal with adversity. I learned grit. I learned how to grind through. I mean, we had to, all those things.
Well, we've had a couple other athletes from Fresno State. When we talk about this, is that, you know, they kind of both said, I knew I wasn't an NFL guy, but I wanted to be at the best I was during that time.
And they also said that they each had a role on that team. So something that resonated with me with Frank Delana was he said he was the guy that just built everybody up.
Yeah, lifted the room.
I mean, to meet him, you're like, of course you did. Like that is his person. But it is interesting when they say it takes a team. Like, it truly takes a team. Every person on that team has a role.
Yeah, it takes a village.
In that sport.
Yeah, he's so true because I could go back and tell you certain people who were what Frank's talking about, right? Like Brad Bell, you know, he's now a youth pastor, right? Yeah. I mean, that guy was crazy. But I mean, talk about lifting the spirits. Trent Dilfer lifting spirits.
Right.
Ron Rivers lifting spirits. Like there was Lorenzo Neal. Like, I got my locker was next to him, and that guy was like, here's one thing: you never give up. You take a beating, and you never give up, right? And that was something that I think that it was inside of me, but I didn't know because of my parents.
Someone pulled it out,
right? And so certain people come into your life for a certain reason to pull things out of you, opportunities and things that you know, gifts that you never knew that you had. And like I said, when you and I said, you know, you said mentor, and I said, there's a lot of them,
right?
There's a lot of them who've been in and out of my life who've actually helped me, you know, to come to
grow,
to grow as an individual. And like I said, I'm so blessed. Like sometimes I'm like, how did I even get here? It's such a blur when they tell you a lifetime goes by so quick.
Right.
You are not joking. The blur is the blur.
But you know what, Armen? When you were telling the story just now about your dad and how your dad said, you're not good. And we were talking about mentors on a previous episode, and I mentioned my mentor. And her son, after watching the episode, messaged me and said, and I think this is almost as important as anything that we've said on the show. He said, what you said about my mom being tough on you was so true. And he said, my mom has always been my biggest fan and my biggest critic. Mm-hmm. And I think in life, our mentors are that. Right? There are people that'll tell us the truth.
Those kids get those chances for mentors. I think that's the biggest part. They'll want to listen. That's listening right now is one of the greatest challenges I'm sure you deal with every day. That's the ones that they don't want to listen.
And it's hard because you feel bad for a lot of these kids. They don't, not as fortunate, right? I mean, we've got, everybody always looks at Bullard as being the rich white school.
Right.
And we're not that. Our demographics are much different than they were back in the 80s and the 90s. And that's like one of the things that I love about Bullard is our diversity, right?
Right.
It's a challenge. You got the richest of the rich and the poorest of the poor and everything in between. And last time I checked, that's society.
Yeah, that's
if we can figure out that piece,
manage it.
right? I mean, we've done something big in the world, right? And we're getting there. Like I said, it's diverse, and there's a lot of different cultures, which I love. I come from an ethnic family. I'm full-blooded Armenian, and I love it. And it's just trying to learn, and I truly do respect so many of the different cultures that we have, and I wish that our students
what they bring
would
to the
understand
table.
that too.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing.
Well, I tell my kids all the time, how boring would life be if we were all the same?
Yeah.
So we shouldn't say, oh, someone's weird or someone, it's just different.
Yeah.
And if we were all the same, it would just be the most boring life ever. So we should just embrace everybody being different, celebrate that. And I know there are extreme circumstances probably,
Right.
which
But I
are
mean,
tough.
just like that's the thing. It's like respecting the uniqueness of people. I don't even know if uniqueness is a word, but like I truly look at people. I'm like, God, they're just so unique, right? Everybody has a gift, and
Right.
I've always felt like our jobs as educators is to help them find that gift and build those doors of opportunity for them. That's what we're here for, right? That I'm not going to save anybody's life. I can impact, and that's like been the biggest one of the biggest things that we've talked about as I brought our staff back in for buyback days at the end. And I didn't even start off with anything. We just went straight to the PL and professional learning and all the structures that we're setting up for the school year. And then I closed this out on the last day after we went bowling. We took them all bowling one day to do the bonding and the team thing, which was awesome, and they loved it.
Yeah.
But I closed this out for like 20 minutes on the last day. Perfect. And that's when I delivered, it's about making an impact. That's what this year is about, is impact. Yeah. Right. At Tenaya, when I was there, I started this thing called what we called Brave Impact, right? Because we're the Tenaya Braves.
Right.
And impact stood for integrity, motivation, perseverance, attitude, courage, and tenacity, which is the words that you were using.
Absolutely.
And I said, if we are able to instill those things into our students, then we've reached impact. And impact is
Love it.
It's a big thing for our students, right? If we can impact them and what they're doing, it could change the trajectory of their lives. And that's what I keep saying. That impact could change the trajectory of which way they decide to go in life. And that's where that's the story I gave about Mr. Ainley and Coach Youngman. Yeah. Had they not done that, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. It changed the trajectory of where I was going. Yep. They opened up college. Like my parents said, you're going to college. You don't know how you're going to afford it. Well, they didn't have to afford anything. I got a full scholarship. Yeah. Had it not been for Coach Ainley and had it not been for Coach Youngman and Coach Johnson and Ben Agajanian, who was an NFL kicker, I went to his camp. All these people, Brad DeLuiso, all these people I kicked with and went to camps. Yes, I had to go and grind through those camps.
Do the hard
and all
work,
that, right?
You got to take the effort on.
But they're the ones who kind of guided me to these ways, and had it not been for them.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's where I'm like, when I say I'm blessed and thankful,
Right.
And again, like my wife has always been, in late nights now, she's like my backbone, man. I'll come home. She goes, okay, I'm gonna go play pickleball, right? But dinner's on the counter for you, right? And I love her to death. And I've been blessed. Like
lucky,
really, like there have been certain people who've set me up in the right spots, and I've been, then it's that the hard part is performing, right? It's just like, okay, here you go, now get it done.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's been the fun part.
I think that what it goes back to, like you said, taking those challenges on and making a choice. I think we talk about that quite a bit, is choices and how you have those pivotal moments, and making a decision is the biggest part of it. It's not necessarily worrying about the right one. It's just make a decision. I think in our world right now, we're a little soft on making people make decisions. Yeah,
I think we're really, well, I think a lot of it is we're so worried about like the social, emotional, mental health, right? Which is
Big
huge.
topic.
Which is a huge.
You can't
huge
discount
topic.
it, but at the same time, it's
Yes, so I guess in my opinion, right? I kind of blame that on technology, and I blame it on social media.
For sure.
And again, like we've tried teaching our kids, social media is great. Like I get to see all my relatives that live in Australia and everywhere else.
Yeah.
I get to see them. People like reunions now. Like, why? I just look on Facebook. It's all they're doing.
Which is good and bad.
Which is very
what
good.
What you just said.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we know what Larry's doing.
But but the problem the problem is that we're handing over a cell phone, a smartphone, to a child. The average age is 12.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. We already talk about kids being 15, 16, 17, 18, and their frontal lobes are not even developed. Heck, I was 30 and my frontal lobes still wasn't developed, right?
It wasn't from the impacts.
Right. No, I only hit a few times out of my entire career. But you're giving a kid a smartphone, and I look at that kind of like a weapon. And social media is so open, and like things like TikTok and Snapchat.
Sure.
Like, we've taken something that was made for good and turned it into something that that can hurt people.
Oh,
sure.
It does hurt people.
It does.
Yeah. And again, like, 2.5 years ago when I came up with this idea of like, oh, we're going to pouch all the phones, and people wanted to like literally crucify me to the wall because of the fact that you're trying to hide racism, or you're trying to, you're taking away our right. And I'm like, I'm just kind of going what the law says I can do. And I felt like this was what was good for our kids. Like it was such a big distraction.
Yeah, for sure.
In the classroom, especially coming back from COVID.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Well,
where they were glued to their phones.
Where they were glued to
Glued to
technology,
them.
period, right?
Yeah.
And I don't blame them, because that's what you did for about 1.5 years.
Right.
And so you're just going to continue to do what you've done. But now you got to, how do you unglue that from a kid?
Right.
It was hard, right? And now, people are like, oh man, you're way ahead of your time. And I'm like, I just got lucky. Right? That entrepreneurial spirit, right? Where you take a chance, you make a choice, and you go after it, and you try to do it. And people are like, how long have you been doing this? Like, for a year? I'm like, no, this is like year 3.
Yeah, right.
And like I'm telling you, my teachers have really bought in. A lot of them like, don't abort it. Just because we might have had a bad year with it last year,
sure.
Right.
Stick with it. The year 3 will be better. You'll see. And then went in and I said, listen, this is what we're doing. This is a non-negotiable. I need to know who's not on board, because if you're not, then I'm going to ask you to go work at a different site.
Sure.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing. I had sent out a survey at the end of the year, and like 84% of our teachers said, no, we want it back and we're going to stick to it. I had 2 teachers and a VP over the summer work together, create a streamlined process. We presented it to staff at Buyback, and they're like, let's go.
Love it.
And I will tell you, you walk in our classrooms, phones aren't out. Phones are in pouches. And I'll tell you, even if maybe they'll put a fake phone in that pouch, which I'm not.
I'm sure it happens.
We would find ways to get past it, right? They put fake stuff in there, but I'll tell you, when teachers like, okay, I'm checking for phones, right? And whether the teacher has them take it out or just put their pouches on the corner, you're putting your pouch on the corner. If you get caught with your phone out, now you're also concerned, oh, damn, I just got caught lying to the teacher.
Right.
And now I'm taking your phone away for the rest of the day. So they're not coming out. Like, I wish we could do that and not have to spend money on pouches.
Where do the pouches go? On the side of the desk or in?
That's at the teacher's discretion.
Okay.
I leave that piece of that creativity, and
How it looks in their classroom.
Yeah. And I'm like, you do it how you would like it. I've given them some models. They've asked me to get on the intercom one or two times during the day, random periods, and just have them do a pouch check. So today I did 2nd period. Tomorrow I might do 4th period. But the thing where we pivoted this year is we've allowed the students to have their phones out during lunch. So that's kind of helped with them. Because parents want to get a hold of you.
Check in.
How do I get a hold of my kid? Now you got 40 minutes to get a hold of your kid. Kid can check on social media what they want to see. But when you go back in a 5th period, it's locked up, put away. And I will tell you, there's some good feedback that we've had. Well, I say feedback, some data. After the first year we did it, our SBAC, our state scores went up 17%.
Yeah, sizable number.
Crazy.
And
I heard that.
And the year that last year when we kind of laxed on it, only went up 1%. So we're going to see what this year does. This is going to be year 3 is going to be critical. But I will tell you, I'm one of my biggest focuses this year is on our freshmen, and our freshmen. A lot of freshmen are coming on, and because middle school grades don't matter, right? It doesn't matter what you get in middle school. You're still going to go to high school.
When did that kids learn that?
I don't know. But if I got a buck
never learned that.
if I got a buck for every time a kid said that when I was working at the junior high, I'd be a millionaire right now.
Oh my goodness.
But what we're trying to do now is we have this thing. It's called it's through core, but it's called BTSC Breakthrough. It's a Breakthrough Student Success Team, and what we do with them is trying to lower our freshman off track rate, their A through G. And so I will tell you, even prior to COVID, we were up in like the 40 percentile, 48 percentile. We're down to 35%. Last year, we went down to 35%. We've got one of the lowest freshman off-track rates in Fresno Unified. Our goal this year is to get below 20%.
Wow.
It's a lot of work. I've got Chassie Betancourt, one of our teachers, who's doing an amazing job leading the way. That's going to be one of my big focuses this year is our freshmen. Because if we can keep those freshmen on track now,
their success patterns should look completely different.
Yeah, we'll change that trajectory, right? And everything from building, building relationships and, test retakes. Instead of doing stuff after school, do it during class.
Right.
Sure. Right. Find a way of doing it, and we've got models for that. And it's been some great things that we've been doing. Again, credit it to my teachers and my admin team who are like, there's hustle all day. It's like one day feels like a week. I'm not kidding you. We say that in football, like every year counts as 4 years, right? Yeah. But like there's a lot of great work going on, and I'm like blessed to be working with so many great people. Fresno Unified's been a great home. We've got a great boss. We can always complain about something.
Oh. Well, of course.
But that goes back to the choice, right?
I'm sitting here thinking, okay, you've been in education how long?
This is my 20th year.
So it's so cool to me that you can tell you still have passion for what you do. I mean, you're talking excitedly and fast. And what do you think what do you attribute that to?
I'd always, in business class, I'd always tell my students, find that one thing that you love to do and try to make that your career, and it'll never feel like work.
It'll never feel like work.
It'll never. I'll like, all right, when Paul comes by and he starts talking about the golf carts, you can't help but want to buy one, especially, right? I mean,
he's pretty passionate about it.
Very passionate about it. And you see, like, the models that you show, like, he's like, oh, I got this one, and he brought it over, and I looked at my office, I'm like, oh, we got to get that. We have to get that.
Well, and exactly, passion rolls over, right? I really do believe that's if it's mine or someone else's, the same thing. You feel blessed about being able to share and do what you do. That also too creates a loyalty to you. I think that's one thing I hear on the street about you all the time is I deal with a lot of the other schools in the district. I have a real positive feedback about Bullard constantly, about the leadership and examples of that. So I think that impact goes way beyond what you're doing with those kids, because that modeling of what you're trying to create this culture or recreate culture.
Yeah, it's a battle, man. It's not easy, and I know there's been, to me, my VPs would laugh because, I've always been into sports, and everything, I turn everything into a sports analogy, right?
Yeah.
I compare it to sports, and and some of my VPs like really aren't into sports, and they're like, well, so I try to explain to them, but, I will tell you that, everything that I do, it's like, we've done in athletics for how many years, right? Like when I was a VP, I told my teacher, I go, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to record you teaching, right? I'm just going to set up the camera, and we're not going to just do your thing.
You be you.
Right.
Just you be you. And I told the teacher's like, when are you going to do it? I go, I'm not going to tell you when I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. And you're not going to know. And so I did it, and I went and I sat down with the teacher one day, and I said, hey, so I recorded you yesterday. She was like, I knew you were doing that. And I'm like, okay, but I go, let's just look at this and let's just see what you did. Well, what are we doing for? We watch game film.
Right.
So I started teaching them, like, let's watch game film.
Yeah.
Love it.
Let's see what you can see yourself, and you can point out yourself. And here's the thing. I told him, I go, here's what I'll do. We'll watch it, but I'm like, here's what I'm going to do. And I told him, I go, she's like, oh, yeah. And I go, I'm going to give it to you. You go home and watch it.
You diagnose.
I'm going to erase it. Then you come back and tell me what, like you just said, you analyze it. And you let me know what you think you could have done better. I'm not going to say a word, because here, who am I? Like, I'm not the math genius. I'm not the English genius.
Sure.
Right. So they're the professional. They're the expert.
Yeah.
And I want them to see what they've done and how they could change it, because to them, that's going to be more valuable to them.
Right.
Because to them, it's that learning piece. Right.
Right.
And I think we're our worst critic most of the time.
Right.
Yeah, I think everybody gets to that spot.
Yeah, but then you can tell what you want to change,
right,
and you're being reflective, right? And so, like that. But that's the thing. Like, Doug Fisher is this big guy that we talk about in education. He's changed all this things. He started the professional learning communities and writes all this stuff about the PLCs and how you collaborate with the school and with the community and this. And then he started writing all these things during COVID. And so now he's got this huge thing with Corwin and PLC Plus. And the funny thing is that he wrote a couple of his books were called the PLC Playbook. Hello.
Yeah.
It's like you've got a playbook for football. You got like all so everything is being related. Like we've done these things for so many years, and it's like, okay, education's finally catching on.
For sure.
And then now well, I'm coaching my teachers. I'm coaching my VPs. Like again, it's athletics. So it's funny because I've never been that person that has that what we call edubabble, right? I'm very simple when it comes to my words. I don't use big words. I'm not crazy like that, but it's just, like again, the biggest word that I can think of when you said passion, I'm just thankful and grateful. Like God has like put me in the right position every time.
That's
and I've been I've been blessed to have great friends and great mentors and great people who've helped guide me, my parents, my wife, my family. And then meeting people like you guys and just the people I meet, man, it's just so nice.
And I think that's the big one, right?
Yeah,
It's the people
well,
you
for
meet.
sure.
I love that part.
So I have two questions based off of what you've just said. One is for the people that aren't so lucky to have such great mentors at home and in their family. I mean, a lot of the people you just mentioned were in your family. You did mention a coach. Coaches.
Yeah.
For the kids that are not as fortunate, that maybe don't have parents that are really invested. I mean, how do you elevate those kids? How do you get to those kids?
Well, so remember I said my parents were immigrants. Mm-hmm. My dad had pretty much an 8 to 5 job, Monday through Friday. Sometimes at one point he became the manager of all the alterations departments at Gottschalk. So he'd have to go out of town and help open up the other stores that were like, I think Capitola and all these other places. Yeah. So there are times that he'd be gone on the weekends. My mom was a nurse and her schedule would vary. Sometimes she had night shifts where she'd go to work at 4 in the afternoon and come back at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Or she'd leave at 6 o'clock in the morning and come back at 4.
Right.
My parents didn't really have like when I played volleyball, parents couldn't come to those games. My parents couldn't spend time like helping fundraise and be part of that. One, we didn't have the money. 2, they didn't have the time.
The time, yeah.
Right. So
that's the most valuable one.
And now it's hard, right? When you're a family and just trying to grow and trying to trying to build your family and just make it, right? You're trying to give your kids every gift that you've got. I was fortunate, like in the sense of, my mom would make me go to church. As I got into high school, I went to church and I joined the youth group and I made some friends. So kept myself busy that way. And I made friends that way. But it all came down to having to put yourself out there and wanting to get connected. Yeah. And that's what we try to tell kids all the time. Find something on our campus that gets you connected.
And it doesn't have to be sports, even though that's a big reference we used. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, like get involved in a club.
Interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Join the leadership club. Try to do something, right? That makes coming to school like much more enjoyable.
We have something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. Like I got in the leadership class. I think it was my junior year in high school at Bullard. I was part of the leadership class, and that really got me out there and got to meet more people. And I felt more connected to school. Like my sophomore, junior, and senior year, like I'd say midway through my sophomore year, my freshman year, I was like, man, this place is too big. I'm a fat, roly-poly guy with a lot of acne on his face. No one's looking at me, and it wasn't until I started playing football, but I got connected there and I got connected in leadership. And, the weirdest thing is that not only did I say I'll never go back to school, right?
Right.
I never even in my wildest dreams ever thought that I'd go back to Bullard.
For sure.
I mean there was no way. Like that whole thing didn't start until I got into education, and that's where I got lucky. But it's for those kids who aren't as lucky, like we try to reach out. Like that's like a big thing for our school. We're trying to build relationships with kids, and I do know for a fact that a lot of our kids look at coming to school as their safe place. It's
that's
safer.
Amazing. If you can create that is a step that's huge.
Yeah, and that's something like we talk about, like, look, it's high school. There have been fights in high schools ever since we even went to school.
Of course.
Way before that.
Right. And the things that they weren't as publicized because now we have, phones.
Right.
Right, to record them, and that's what people do. And which is so bad because you're getting someone at their lowest point.
Right.
But I try to tell kids all the time, like, well, why are you fighting here? Like, so I ask kids all the time, I say, look, I'm like, I go, do you go to church? And sometimes they'll say yes, sometimes they'll say no. But even the ones that say no, I'm like, would you fight in church? Like, no. Why? Well, it's church. Would you curse in church? No.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Well, it's church. Well, would you disrespect the priest? No, man, he's a priest. Like, it's God's guy. And I'm like, look, man, I don't know where this changed, but school used to be sacred like church.
Mm-hmm.
So treat school like it's church. I'm your priest. The teachers are your priests, right? This is school grounds. Like, you don't fight here. And you shouldn't fight anywhere, but don't fight here.
Don't bring it to,
what you're doing is you're ruining the safe place for where people are trying to get away from their neighborhoods, that this is the safe place.
Right.
Yeah.
You're ruining that for them because now you're trying to bring neighborhood crap into here.
Right.
That's not where this belongs. And again, it doesn't belong in society either, but like, don't ruin this safe place for many of the other people who consider this their safe place.
Right.
No, and that's not putting down other parents or anybody or any neighborhoods. It's just like, the hard part is, like, when you're young, is not to be selfish, right? And that's the piece, because you're always like, what about me? What about me? What about me? What about me? And what about you? What about the 2,500 other kids that I got here? Right. And so that's the thing. And so when we have fights, and I go in, and some of them, or most of them, will be pretty remorseful, and I try to have that conversation with them in that way. I'm like, listen, if you feel like you're not having a good day, you just need to come find me.
Sure.
Well, you're busy. You're the principal. It doesn't matter.
Right. I'll make
my stuff can wait.
Right.
I need to worry about you first. Right. And a lot of my VPs are the same way. I should say all of them are all the same way.
That's a great culture.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
They're like, okay, I'll stay after to get these emails done, or this report done, or whatever it is. I need to worry about that person and that person right now. And so that has been at the forefront. Like, the big thing is, if we could reestablish our culture where people feel safe, where people love coming to school, I'm not going to say the rest will just fall into place, but it'll make everything easier.
It'll help.
For sure.
To fall into place, right?
Sure.
Okay, so you can't bring up safety and not talk about this topic, although I hate this topic. But my daughter's school just had what's it called? Bomb threat.
Ugh.
Okay, we've got school
Scary
shootings.
stuff.
We've got all these different things. With this that's happening now, how do you make your kids feel safe? Because it's not even about the fight anymore. Like, that's like, people aren't even as worried about that.
That's
as
nothing
much
compared to those, right?
Compared to that, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, what are those conversations like with the kids in school now?
I don't think a day goes by where kids don't think about that. There was
Right.
a point a couple of years ago where we were getting those threats.
Yeah.
And a lot of schools, like, I know Clovis West had some. I know we had some. I know recently whatever happened in Georgia, and then now, like, literally days after that had happened, a lot of our schools were getting stuff. And,
Right.
In this case, Minarets is where our daughter is, and that's exactly.
Yeah, and a lot of it is stemmed, again, social media, right? That's where it all starts off, and that's how they're spreading, or phone calls that are made to the school. It is scary, and there's nothing you can do to be proactive about it. All you can do is really push on the training that you've gotten, lockdown drills. That's why we try to tell kids it's important. Lockdown drills are important. And it's scary because some kids who've been through these already, right? It's like, oh my God, the drill, and it's traumatic, right? There's trauma that comes with it.
Right.
Sure.
Like, oh my
Just
God.
even preparing for
what's gonna
this.
happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, all you can do, it's like a fire drill, man. It's like, all you can do is try to prepare for it, so you know when the time comes, you know what you need to do.
Right.
That's what we try to tell parents too. Don't call your kid, and I know that's hard, because our lives are our kids, right? That's our life. And
Right.
you're not going to let but we're putting kids in more danger when we're trying to call them, or your kids are trying to call you on their cell phone. Put the cell phone down, pay attention to what the directions are, mind what you're doing. Once you get to safety and you're clear, then go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is super, super scary, because, I mean, my daughter was texting me from underneath the desk, and I mean.
In short sentences, it made no sense other than, we're in a lockdown. I love you.
And you're
scary.
like, okay,
That's
wait.
all she got. You're like, what?
And, so it is. It's a scary thing when you hear about these things that are happening all over. And I know we shouldn't live our life in fear, but it is a reality that's happening right now. So I think that I guess having everything else be so positive and being prepared for the worst situation is all you can do.
Right. And what we've tried to do, even when the incidents that we had at Bullard, we had like a messenger that we sent out to parents. We have this new thing called Parent Square that we've been using since last year. I tried to stay on task with that. If you're going through a lockdown and the cops are handling your thing, your people are already in place. They're in the lockdown. All I'm trying to do is keep communication with my teachers through Parent Square, which they can get on their phones or on their laptops.
Right.
And I'm trying to send messages out to parents as quickly as possible. Again, there are times where the district's like, hold off. I'm like, my parents need to know what's going on.
They need to know.
Because if I can get that timely communication out to my parents,
settles everything down.
It settles things down with kids. But the thing is that the first thing you have is parents coming onto campus, like,
right.
Stay off my campus. Right. You're going to put yourself in danger if there really is something going on.
Yeah.
And so that's the hardest part. It's like communication is a big thing and trying to get that out there.
Yeah.
But then again, sometimes I've got to wait to make sure I'm getting facts so I don't scare the living bejesus out of my parents. Like, there's a gunman. Well, it wasn't a gunman. It was like the pallets fell. Right? And they're like, oh, you were trying to hide something. I'm not trying to hide anything. Trust me, that's not something I'm going to kid about.
Right.
But it is that the hard part is to, you don't know when it's coming.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's hard because it could be a normal morning for you getting dressed and you just don't know what's going to come. And not to scare people, but like, again,
it's an unwanted reality. It's really terrible.
Yeah. I mean, it's like sometimes I feel like I'm like a cop. I'm going to go out, and I don't know if I'm going to come home today. Right. And that's why I'm like, and this sounds really morbid, but that's why like every morning tell my wife I love her to death, give her a kiss, make sure that she knows, God forbid. I don't know. Heck, I could be driving home and get in a car accident.
Yeah,
I could leave here today and I don't know what'll happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
life can change quickly.
Yeah. And we've seen it happen and it's, but it is scary. But all you can do is like, you go to school, you put on, you have your positive attitude. I have that choice,
Absolutely.
And I try to be infectious with it. Like I'm walking around, good morning, how's it going? Let's go, let's get it going. Come on. That's all you can do. Right. And, if you see a kid down, like, how's it going? What's going on? Like I saw a kid crying, like, what's going on? And she's like, nothing. I'm like, oh, look, I go, you're not a good liar. You're crying. Thumbs up. Let's go. And I got her to laugh a little bit. Right. And so we went into my office and spoke, and she's 14 and emotional and some problems at home, problems with some friends at school. We talked it out and I'm like, okay, here's my email. Here's how you get a hold of me on Teams. I'm like, do you want me to try to get you together with, someone from our social emotional team? Or do you feel like, she goes, no, I think I'm good to go to class. I'm like, listen, anything, hit me up on, on Teams.
Yep.
And she's like, really? I'm like, yeah.
Oh.
And we were in my office.
You made it real. You made yourself real.
Yeah. And so she knows that I'm there for her. And it's hard. Like, the hard piece is that people ask me how many kids I've got. And I go, well, in reality,
2,500.
2,500. Right.
Right.
At
any
home,
given time.
2,
Yeah.
Right. And like this we get stupid and funny with them. Like, yeah, I got 2,500 kids, all from different moms.
Right.
And they're like, you're in education. But we have it's like trying to make it fun, try to get kids to smile every day. And, that's the whole thing with like why we're pushing on like building relationships. Yeah. One of my teachers, Chassie Betancourt, was talking about this whole BTSC thing in our breakout sessions today for our PD, and she said, let's do this, she goes 2 by 10, 2 minutes for 10 days with any student. But spend 2 minutes, and it doesn't have to be 10 days in a row. It can be 10 days throughout the entire semester, but that same student, 2 minutes.
Make that effort.
Nice.
Excuse me, 2 minutes. And you build that relationship. She goes, she did it with a couple of kids and she goes, I learned so much about them I had no clue about. And she goes, here's the crazy thing. Now the kid wants to come talk to me all day. Right? Because I built that relationship.
Right.
Yeah, but talk about trajectory change.
Trajectory, yeah. Changing that trajectory, yeah. And it's just like that kid is now trusting that teacher.
Right.
Right? And is now more open to asking questions in class, whether it's about biology, whether it's about life, whether it's whatever.
Right.
Right? You've opened that door, and that's so huge.
I love that.
We do the same thing with our employees, very small scale, no comparison, but, we've got team members that are, all walks of life, and being able to take that moment and pay attention to their personal moments that they're talking about, or one of them is like Dad, he said, my dad never made it to any of my track meets, and my kids got track meets. Can I start going to them? I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, can I make up hours somehow? Yeah, you're fine. Go do it. It's important.
That is important.
And so now, after the end of the race on a Friday afternoon, I get a phone call from the little boy and dad celebrating what he accomplished.
It's awesome.
How great's that, right?
Yeah, it is. And we've done that. We do that with like my VPs. Not all of them, have kids that are out of the house, right? Like
Right.
I have a VP, Shane Riddle. He's got a daughter who they live out in Quail Lakes area.
Mm-hmm.
His daughter goes to Sanger. She plays soccer, and he's going to go watch her games.
Right.
But then there's days because I'm going to leave early to go watch this, and Fabiola Perez, who's one of our VPs last year, had a daughter who ran track and ran cross country at Baird, and
Sure.
she wanted to go catch him. And I'm like, go, you need to go.
Right.
I've Angela Amiri and Alicia Jackson, my two VPs that I've had for a while now. They've got olders that are in college. Like, hey, can I take tomorrow off? I need to go. And I'm taking my kid back to Cal Poly. I'm taking her back to Long Beach.
Right.
For sure.
Go. You need to be there.
Yeah.
Right.
And now with me, they're like, hey, you need to go.
Right.
You need to go.
Yeah.
Right. And
all
so
do
there's
need
just
that.
this common understanding.
But the grace,
Yes.
it's the grace, right? And if you're building a family, and you're building a process,
Right.
and you're building a safe spot for not only your kids, but your coworkers,
Yeah.
which is teammates.
And I'll tell you, and even our own students get a kick out of like us showing up to games. Like we had our first two games were up north, like in Atwater and Golden Valley, Merced.
Yeah.
And we went to those games, and then we went right after that. We had the game in Bakersfield, and my campus culture director Shelby Newman, who is a former student of mine, and we would go, and Shane Riddle, our VP, he would go. Brandon Gilbert, our athletic director, we'd all go, and the kids were like, "Dude, you guys like make the road trip." I'm like, "Heck yeah, man, we're here to support you guys." And they get
love
so
that.
excited, like,
Yeah.
"Dude, the principal's here," or I'll go to a water polo, man. And I try, like, it's so hard, like. We have volleyball going on, we have water polo going on,
Right.
and I'm missing
And a
them, which is
sports-minded.
okay. But I got to make my parents, because they get
Yeah.
so excited, like, oh, dude, the principal's here, like, and they know, like, and I got to get to water polo and I got to get to volleyball. I haven't had a chance to get to those, but kids get so excited when you show up for them,
Right.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And then there's that, and I tell teachers that all the time. Some of our teachers come out, and then now you've got that thing to talk about. Like I go to band perform, like I get to oversee our VAPA department, our visual and performing arts, and I'm like all into our band, right? I played a musical instrument when I was young, never made it past junior high, but I love music, and I want to see our program grow. And I go in and I'm watching the band. I'm like, you guys are freaking incredible. That is amazing. Like you guys, and I'm like, man, I thought you played percussion. He goes, yeah, but I also play the clarinet and the sax. I'm like, oh my God, like you get to learn about these kids and what they can do. They're so amazing, man. It's like some of the things that we see that I get to see on our campus. It just amazes me. And then graduation, and you're reading off where you're summa cum laude valedictorians are going microbiology. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, I can't even pronounce this word. Like, what are you going to major in? And all the things that they've accomplished. And it's amazing. Like, and there's people say there's no hope. No, there's a ton of hope. We just tend to focus on that small percentage of negative.
Sure.
Instead of
in our world today, it's a big. That's
a good way to look at it.
You got to look at the 95% that are killing it every single day, and that 5%. It's like, how do we? The $1 million question: how do we get them to move? How do we get them to level up? Right? How do we get to motivate them? And some of that can be like you said. Some of it's outside influences that we can't get to.
Yeah,
right,
for sure.
So as a principal. I feel like, in a sense, you're like a local celebrity, because when you go someplace,
right?
I mean, okay, so my son went up through Bullard when we moved out here. Bella transferred to a different district, but I'll never forget, he was at his first job, and in walks Charlie Reynolds, the principal that he had all through at Star, right? And he was like, oh my gosh, I saw Mr. Reynolds today. Yeah. And I'm sure you get that all the time. Like, in a way, you have to watch your P's and Q's all the time when you're out, right? Because
especially if it's at Bullard, right? If you're a Bullard principal,
right?
I mean, we fart funny, and it's all over the news. Like, I'm sorry to say that on the air.
You're okay.
But like you,
private channel.
I really have to be careful.
Yeah. Right.
And Charlie Reynolds, he just retired last
Love
year.
him.
It's a big loss
huge.
to our region. He is the most amazing man.
Yep.
And Jonathan Graney, who's a new principal at Star, is going to do some great things. He's new, and he's like, I think he'll
Big
continue.
shoes to fill.
Yes, but I think he's the right guy to fill him.
Good.
But Charlie was amazing, and that guy, I've heard
he's
so many great. Like my little cousin is in 4th grade now at Star, and she loved Mr. Reynolds.
Yep.
Loved it. And he loved her. And
Yeah.
he's like, oh my God, your little cousin Tanaya, she's just amazing. She's got such a little spitfire. She goes, she just never stops talking. but that her personality and she's just a loving kid. And it's like, that's the hardest thing that we have. Like, I feel like sometimes most of the time I feel like I deal with adults more than I deal with kids.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's like one thing that you have to try to like, but I would have to say most of our teachers are really, really good. But just be like, with social media and what you post,
Right.
what you're doing out and about. And I have never been a big partier. Right. So it's been easier for me.
That's good. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. But I also don't post a lot.
Right.
There were a couple of times when I played football at Fresno State and got interviewed and my stuff was twisted. So now I'm very
Right.
careful on what I say.
You learned early.
But it's still like, sometimes I don't want to do interviews and I don't want to nail GVY or a KMJ or anything like that, even though I just did, but, but I know they have a job to do.
Sure.
Right. And it just goes like, a picture's worth 1,000 words. What you say can be received differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I could say something and it's what I'm going through in my head. It means to me, someone can take it as something else, offensive or whatever. So I've always had to try to be careful, and it's still hard because you do want to speak your mind sometimes. And
well, you want to be a leader, and a leader has to. Those are words empower all of that, right? So that's a big part of it.
And I feel that right now with the election coming up, and as a business owner, and I'll see something and be like, oh, I want to post that so bad.
Yeah.
But I also feel like,
your business.
Can't.
Yeah.
Like, we're a business owner.
We're
and there's
more than
only
ever.
so much
that
you
are
can put out
putting
there because you're picking sides. And so I think when you're someone in the community that is dealing with so many people and so many parents, like you just have to know that you walk a straight line, right?
Well, it's hard.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I think just a word. We just use the word "be an example." So
Right.
if you want somebody to take an impression, just be a good example. And it may not be always easy, obviously, but just continue on that path. And I think that's a big part that we have got a lot of walkways. We would not as wide as yours, but people that we deal with both on our business life and our personal life and our social life, and just be a good example.
It's hard because you want to be able to live your life.
Yeah.
And what you do on your own time is your own business, but at the same time, people
Right.
are always watching and they're always trying to find something, and it really is hard. If I ever my wife's like, when we you'll never get to let loose. I'm like, not until I'm done with this job, right? And but
Go out of the country, maybe.
yeah. But even then, right? I don't look at it as being a celebrity. I just look at it as being responsible in my position.
Yeah. Sure.
Right. Like I said, I'm not about attention. I don't do things for that.
But you're well liked in the public. That's a really big part about it. You have a great reputation on the street, and that's a statement in itself. So that's your.
Yeah, but if I could make a suggestion, you may do this already, but social media is such a huge part of these kids' lives now. And one thing that we've learned as adults is you can keep scrolling even if you don't like something, right?
Yep.
And maybe there's a class, maybe there's etiquette that you can teach kids on how they respond and how, things don't have to be a fight on social media, that if you don't agree, you can just keep going.
Yeah.
And it even, if you don't agree politically, it doesn't mean that you can't be friends or you can't whatever.
Right.
I feel like we need to start tackling that issue of how people get so bold on social media.
Yep.
But honestly, it can be division.
Yeah,
and if they can learn that in high school, that kindness even is on social.
Yeah.
Like,
and it should be. You know, it is. It's one of the biggest things is the educational piece behind, like, not only that, but like, you know, derogatory terms, vulgar terms, social media. People get so wrapped up in like, oh, they said this. I'm like, who cares? Like really, who cares, right?
Well, our good friend here and our producer, we were having a conversation before you arrived earlier today about how social media is actually becoming a religion. It's becoming a social input. It's becoming all these layers of things, and it's all open to interpretation.
Yeah.
And that is, not to beat a dead horse with social media, but we enjoy it. This is part of what we're here today for this. But there's just a responsibility to it.
And there's so many positive things, like we said earlier, that you can do with social media. Like I've seen your guys' posts and the advertising piece, because people look at that.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And there's one thing. So I'm very, believe it or not, I'm sitting here. When I thought was a podcast, I didn't think we're going to be on camera, but and I'm like, I can do anything behind a microphone. If I'm not seen, I'm trying not to look at the camera. To make it more comfortable. But at the same time, like, students have asked, like, hey, like, make some posts, like do a video and make some posts.
Sure.
And I'm like, I hate my voice, first of all. Again, we're our own worst critics, right?
Worst critic.
Hate my voice, don't like the way I look on camera. I don't know what it is, but that's just me. And people are like, oh no. And I always have to remember, whatever I'm portraying on camera is what people already see me
100%.
when we're face to face.
Yeah.
And so I have to get over that.
Although it puts more pounds on, they say. So
right. So I'm like,
sit up straight.
Suck it in. But I was like, I have to get more comfortable with myself and who I've been.
Yeah.
And I can laugh at myself. But at the same time, I've always worried, like, I always told myself I wasn't the greatest looking kid growing up. I was always kind of overweight. I've been challenging. I've had weight challenges my entire life. And until I got to football at Fresno State, and I learned how to eat and did all that. And even now I'm like, I'm still kind of battling some weight that I don't want to have. But at the same time, so I've always looked at, even when I was, trying out, when I was going through the NFL Combine, I was probably in the best shape of my life, like barely 9% body fat, 190 pounds. I was like squatting over 500, benching over 300, doing all the crazy stuff, and was the best shape of my life. Like I literally had a 4-pack, which I don't know, for me has been a struggle. And with all the things that I was doing, you'd think I'd have a 6-pack, but even back then, people were like, well, you'd go to the beach when I was living down south, like, dude, take off your shirt. I'm like, nah. I still saw myself as that fat little kid.
My wife has a saying.
I think it's pretty well known, but I wish I was as fat as the first time I thought I was fat. Right? Because you didn't really appreciate that. And it does get worse.
Or it has the capacity.
When you get older, like when you're 51, like the things I used to do to lose weight are not working anymore. So, but it's that thing, it's.
You might consider doing a podcast.
Yeah.
You might just be able to take it off the scene a little bit and just be able to put it in your way. And it's in a controlled environment. Just a thought. Because to be honest with you, that's why we're here. I mean,
it's fun. I mean, people need it. Like, what I dream and wish for every kid is to be able to have the opportunities that I had. And like, people ask, like, why do you do this? Like, why? Like, it's not worth the money. It's not worth the headache. It's not worth the stress. And like, I'm like, look, I was never going to be a rich guy. I knew that. And I have to give back the gifts that were given to me. Right. So all those years that I would work with kickers and stuff like that. So, someone found this gift in me and pulled it out. Right. I had to do the same. And if I could just impact one kid, 2 kids, 3 kids, and change their trajectory.
Yep.
That there's no amount of money that can make up for that, right?
Sure.
And that's honestly why I think a lot of educators do what we do. It's not for the money.
It's not
maybe for the time off in the summers.
Right.
But
you're full-time.
I'm full-time. I'm 12 months.
Yeah, right.
I'm 12 months. I get 20 days off the entire school year.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I get the Monday federal holidays, like Christmas, New Year's, 4th of July, whatever, Martin Luther King, the president's holiday. I get those Mondays and stuff. But other than that, I don't get like the week at Thanksgiving or the 3 weeks at Christmas. Wow. I got to sprinkle out my days, just like a regular private sector employee.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. So, okay, one last question.
Sure.
What is your best advice for parents of junior high and high school kids right now?
Never give up.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
Keep investing.
Never give up on your kids.
Yeah.
And that's, and I get all teary-eyed when I say that because I see so many people, adults have problems. Don't bring your kids in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't use your kids as that collateral piece. Like I said, I've been very fortunate, right? I'm a stepdad of 2, and the relationship that I have with my wife's ex-husband and his wife, and my kid's stepmom has a child, and just the relationship that we have. I wish people would understand. Like, it's not, when you have kids, it's not about you anymore. It's about your kids.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And I wish that parents, don't give up on your kids. No matter how hard your life has been, you brought kids into this world, and our number one goal is to make sure that they have a better life than we did.
Right.
And that's, I just feel like, and we did, I'm not going to lie, there are times where we, as administrators, and some teachers, you want to give up on these kids. There's nothing changing these kids.
Right.
But it just takes one little thing.
Yeah.
One little thing to change, right? But for parents, don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't ever give up.
I tell her all the time when those days when one of the kids is giving her more pressure than the other or vice versa, I say, you just continue to be you.
Yeah.
He does.
Just don't stop being you, because your constant will fix and carry those kids through that moment. And it really will.
And it's weird because, and I'm sure you guys have experienced this too, when you think your kids aren't listening, oh, they
Yes.
are.
Oh, they are.
They are. And,
Yeah.
and like I said, my son and daughter, and again, props to their dad who has allowed me to be a part of their lives. And, and that all comes from my wife having the courage to say, no, this is, and again, their stepmom is a major part of their lives too. And the co-parenting that goes on. But the fact is that my 2 kids are so opposite, right? Our boy is such a boy. He's lost his freaking car keys God knows how many times. and I know it drives his dad crazy and it drives me nuts. But at the end of the day, he's still an amazing kid. If that's the worst he's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And our daughter, on the other hand, she's just like my wife. She's just like her mom. And she's headstrong and just a go-getter. And she flies under the radar, and she could be doing some crazy stuff and we don't know about it. And she's just this angel.
Right.
She gets all her work done. I mean, we just moved her over to San Luis. She's going to Cuesta.
Nice.
And she said since she was a little kid that she wants to live over there. And she wanted to go to Cal Poly. She graduated from North with a 3.89 or 3.9, whatever it was. And she didn't get into Cal Poly, which was fine.
Yeah. Right.
She's going to go to Cuesta. She wants to be a CRNA, but then again, she moves over there with a friend of hers. They're roommates. Their first full weekend that they were there, and they got there a month before even school started. They went looking for jobs, and she got a job working, at Dolphin Bay, the resort, and the Lido restaurant. And she loves her job. She goes to school. She has her, and
she's got that ethic in her.
She's living her best life. I'm jealous right now. But again, she wanted a job. She's like, I can't make, you guys or her dad and stepmom, I can't make you guys pay for this. I got to do this and I got to help out. And, and I'm like, no, our job that's what we do as parents. Right. But like I said, they're opposites. Right. But our son,
funny?
He just went and found that job. He got that job at PG&E, and he's
right.
But they're both very passionate what they're doing.
Yeah, it's
they're
great.
Both different, but at the same time, and I see little bits and pieces of what all of us parents, have
contributed.
The team did, right?
Yeah,
the village.
You start seeing that, and then again, mentors the village to raise kids, and I couldn't be any more proud of my kids and even our students, man. They're the same way. You start to see they say a lot of things and it's crazy because I have had this graduating class that just graduated were my first 7th graders. That just graduated in 24. They were my first 7th graders that I had at Tenaya. This group graduating has been coming in and up until my sophomores this year. So I've had the opportunity to watch these kids and just change.
Yeah.
To see that, last year, couple of kids. I'm like, man, I guess the same kid would be running in circles and chasing people at 9th and 7th grade. And now he's making adult decisions and he's working and he's getting good grades and he's like, his head's there for the future. And I'm like, wow, you know, and it just
hold it together.
It's just crazy. It's just to see the maturity level, right?
Yeah.
And to know that you had a little bit of it, like we had a little piece of that.
Yeah,
too, right?
yeah.
To make that difference. So it's been cool.
I love that. This has been so fun.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you, Armen. I appreciate it.
I'm going to have to listen to it. I got to figure it out. I didn't know you guys had one until.
Well, it's been a new project for us. It's something that we're taking some great guidance from our Jake, our producer, and some friends around us. And once again, we're those people too. We want to give back. You know, we have a lot of friends and family around us, and sometimes you talk to people and they say, you guys should do this and try this, and you're like, eh. And then we thought, you know what? Us together is a big part of what we do,
with it.
And we've been having a blast with it, and bringing great people in, and that's been a focus for us, is to find those mentors that come sit and talk with us, and grow.
I don't think we realized how blessed we would be by this.
Oh man!
Oh, we're going to interview all these people, and we can bless other people with that. But we've been blessed by just really having such great conversations. So
for sure.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys for having us.
It's been awesome.
It's been fun. Thank you guys.
We'll have to have you back.
Anytime.
Love it.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you.